If you feel like taxes in Canada are a black hole where your money disappears, you're not imagining it. A lot of people are paying more tax than they need to, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because they're missing a few simple moves. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 9 legal ways to reduce your tax bill in Canada. Nothing shady, no loopholes, just practical stuff. What to do, why it works, and a few quick examples. Quick disclaimer, this is general education, not personal tax advice. Rules and limits change and your situation matters, so double-check details on the CRA website or with a qualified professional. All right, let's turn tax season panic into an actual plan. First up, stop guessing. RRSP versus TFSA should be based on your tax bracket. One of the most common mistakes is treating RRSP and TFSA like they're the same thing, or like one of them is always better. Here's the simple way to think about it. If your tax rate is high right now and you expect it to be lower later, the RRSP often gives you the bigger win. If your tax rate is low right now and you expect it to be higher later, the TFSA is usually the safer bet. And the reason is simple. RRSP contributions can lower your taxable income today, but withdrawals later are taxable. TFSA doesn't give you a deduction today, but withdrawals later are tax-free. Let's put some numbers on it. Example, say you're earning around $90,000 and you contribute $5,000 to an RRSP. Depending on your province and tax bracket, that could work out to roughly $1,500-ish in tax savings. Not because the RRSP is magic, because your tax rate is high enough that the deduction actually matters. Here's the practical tip. If you don't know your marginal tax bracket, just search Marginal Tax Rate Canada plus your province and estimate. Even a rough idea helps you stop making random choices. Next is if buying a home is on your radar, even maybe someday, the FHSA can be a game changer. For a lot of people, the FHSA is basically the most powerful middle ground account we've had in Canada in a long time. Under current rules, the FHSA has an annual contribution limit and a lifetime maximum, and contributions are generally tax deductible, so that part behaves like an RRSP. Then, if you withdraw to buy a qualifying home and you follow the rules, those withdrawals can be tax-free, so that part behaves like a TFSA. So the simple way to remember it is tax deduction on the way in and potentially tax-free on the way out when used for a home. Example, if you contribute the maximum for the year and you're in a moderate tax bracket, that can reduce your tax bill by thousands depending on your income. Practical tip here is if home ownership is even a maybe someday, consider opening an FHSA early so you start accumulating contribution room. And before you contribute, verify the current annual and lifetime limits so you don't accidentally over-contribute. Now let's talk couples, because this one is underused. Spousal RRSP for uneven incomes. If one person in the household earns significantly more than the other, you can sometimes lower total taxes over time by planning retirement withdrawals more strategically. Here's the idea. The higher income spouse contributes to a spousal RRSP, gets the tax deduction today, but the money belongs to the lower income spouse for future withdrawals. That can help smooth income in retirement, so you're not stuck with one person withdrawing everything and getting taxed at higher rates. One important caution, there are attribution rules, often described as a 3-year rule, so this isn't something you do and then immediately withdraw. It's a longer-term planning tool. Practical tip. If your incomes are uneven, it's worth asking, should we be using a spousal RRSP for contributions this tax year? It's one of those small decisions that can add up over decades. All right, now we're getting into the stuff that feels boring, but it's often the easiest money. Don't miss the deductions and credits people forget. This is where people overpay without realizing it, not because they're careless, but because nobody told them what to track. A few common ones. Childcare expenses. If you have kids and you paid for daycare or certain childcare, this can be a major deduction. Often it's claimed by the lower income spouse, depending on the situation. Medical expenses. This one is sneaky. Medical expenses can be claimed for a 12-month period ending in the tax year. So sometimes the best move is to bundle expenses into the window that gives you the biggest credit. Work from home if eligible. A lot of people assume they can claim something automatically, but many situations now use the detailed method and may require documentation or a form from your employer. If you qualify, it can be worth it, just do it properly. Moving expenses. If you moved for work or school and you meet the criteria, some moving costs may qualify. Here's the simple habit that makes all of this easier. Keep a tax folder. It can be digital, it can be a note on your phone, it can be a literal envelope. The point is, if you track it as you go, you're not trying to reconstruct your life from bank statements later. Next up is one of the most overlooked ways people lose money every year: investing without thinking about taxes. This move is all about being intentional with where you hold things, because not all investment income is taxed the same way. In general, interest income like GIC interest or savings interest is often taxed the most harshly in a non-registered account. Capital gains are typically more tax efficient than interest, and dividends can have favorable treatment depending on the type and your personal situation. So the strategy is something called asset location, putting the right investments in the right accounts when you can. Example, if you're holding a high-interest product in a non-registered account, that interest can increase your taxable income every year. If that same growth happens inside a TFSA, you may keep more of it. Practical tip, take 5 minutes and list what you hold in your TFSA, RRSP, FHSA if you have one, and non-registered accounts. Then ask one simple question: is this placed in the best account for taxes? You don't need perfection, just stop doing the obviously inefficient version. Now for move number 6, tax loss harvesting. Powerful, but you have to follow the rules. This only applies to non-registered investing. If you sell an investment at a loss, that capital loss can potentially offset capital gains, meaning you could reduce taxes you'd otherwise owe on gains. Example, if earlier in the year you realized $3,000 in capital gains and later you realized $3,000 in capital losses, you may reduce the taxable impact of those gains. But, and this is a big but, the superficial loss rule can deny your loss if you sell and buy the same or an identical investment in a window that's often described as 30 days before or after the sale. So this isn't sell it today and buy it back tomorrow. You want to do this carefully. Practical tip, if you had gains this year and you've got positions that are down in your non-registered account, talk to a tax pro before you start doing sell and rebuy moves, especially if you're not sure what counts as identical. Move number 7 is for donate smarter, especially if you already donate anyway. This isn't about donating just for the tax benefit. It's about not wasting the tax benefit if donating is already part of your plan. 2 strategies. First is bunching. Instead of donating a little bit every year, you donate 2 or 3 years worth in 1 year so you can maximize the tax credit thresholds. Then you go back to normal later. Second is donating appreciated stocks or ETFs. In some cases, donating securities directly can reduce or eliminate capital gains tax on the donated amount while still giving you a donation receipt. This is one of those strategies that can be surprisingly powerful, but you want to do it correctly. Practical tip. If you donate annually, consider if this is a bunching year, and if you have investments that have grown, ask whether donating securities makes sense in your situation. Move number 8 is for anyone with side income, freelancing, or a business. Self-employed tax planning is mostly systems, not secrets. Most self-employed people don't overpay because they're bad with money. They overpay because things get messy. Mixed accounts, missing receipts, last-minute scrambling, and then you either miss deductions or you get surprised by how much you owe. A few high-impact basics. Track expenses consistently. Don't wait until tax time. Separate business and personal spending. Understand installment payments so you don't get hit with a surprise bill. Review home office eligibility carefully. Don't overclaim, but don't ignore it either. And just to keep this responsible, salary versus dividends inside a corporation can get complex, and it depends on a lot. So I'm not going deep here. If you're incorporated, it's worth getting tailored advice. And last, use a simple tax calendar so you do the right thing at the right time. Because honestly, most tax savings are not about knowledge, they're about timing. Here's a rhythm you can repeat every year. From January to March, set up automatic TFSA, RRSP, or FHSA contributions if that's part of your plan. Start or refresh your tax folder for receipts and notes. Throughout the year, track childcare, medical, and work from home eligibility. If you're self-employed, do a monthly bookkeeping mini-check so nothing piles up. In the last quarter of the year, review your income. If you're higher than expected this year, RRSP contributions might help. Consider tax loss harvesting in non-registered accounts. Plan charitable donations, including bunching or donating securities. During the RRSP contribution deadline period after year-end, decide whether you're contributing for the previous tax year, the new tax year, or splitting between both. Then confirm what makes sense for your income level. If you only take one thing from this video, make it this. Paying less tax is rarely about one big hack. It's about stacking small, legal decisions all year. And if you want a simple Start Here task that takes literally 2 minutes, log into CRA My Account and check your TFSA contribution room and your RRSP deduction limit. Write those 2 numbers down. Once you know them, your next move gets a lot clearer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.